I never really called myself an artist. I guess it's a calling. I was meant to do this. I think I was born to do this. Obviously, there are a couple of layers that I look back and I know that really I was meant to be an artist. The only thing that I always found challenging in school was really art, fine art especially. But also I always found myself in the art room. And obviously in our education system, there is always an emphasis on the sciences, physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics. And I always found those easy, so and going through school always on top of my class, and getting very good grades in these in subjects. And for me, I guess I always like challenges. So the challenge really came, and the interest was really in the art. As long as the teacher was good in class, the rest of the subjects were easy. But I found myself experimenting more, seeking more. I think how art really came to me was rather unusual, extraordinary, in a sense that my entry and also my greatest interest in art really came through hip hop and urban culture, through like music videos, through wild style, where you have these the rappers, graffiti in the background, and the b-boys dancing, and then the poets, and also the fashion, the big medallions, the street jean denim, hand painted. When I saw those videos, I think I was attracted watching the likes of Zulu Nation, Africa Bambata, KRS-One, and was also like multidisciplinary. So that I think inspired me uh, to go into the art. Language, for sure, is an integral part of the essence of humanity, of who you are as a human being. It's where it starts. All these other things like identity, like culture, because language is also part of culture. And as culture evolves, language also evolves. And also as culture happens, language is developed. So it's an integral part of culture, but also of tradition and also of your existence. I always tell myself that I think in Luganda, which is my language, because everything is informed from that. But also increasingly, it's easier to express yourself in something you understand that also is ancestral. Going back to language, especially proverbs and sayings, uh, there are situations that you find yourself in, and there is always a proverb or a saying for that situation. I'll give you an example, especially for this exhibition, the mukeka. Mukeka is a woven, which also draws us back to what art is, or what African art was. Of course, most of it was utilitarian, So the idea for me is also to make it ambiguous and give it a new form, a new formation. But mukeka is woven. Within the weaving, of course, you're looking at colors, you're looking at nature, materials from nature and all that. But then there is also sayings, a saying, I don't know if it's a proverb, that nina mukazi wange aluka emikeeka mingi naye atuula ku ttaka, which literally could mean that I have a wife who weaves many mats but sits on the floor. Now, this literally is a very simple saying, but you can use it you can employ it in as many situations. Tondinyira mukange became a street slang. Tondinyira mukange, don't step in mine. That inspires me to create this work. This work is not localized. It evolves into a different space that even if I'm a diasporan Ugandan, this means a lot in terms of sharing spaces, in terms of accommodating other people, in terms of sharing. Because you find, for instance, people who migrate, most immigrants, you find that before everyone becomes okay and gets the papers, they cram themselves in simple rooms. In Uganda, we say abantu bawansi, but in essence, I would mean Ugandans, Kenyans, Tanzanians, or Africans should find an entry point into this work. That's really the first entry. I used to work alone. But then as you go, you can't do everything alone. So eventually, especially if you look at music where you have dancers, you have, especially in Africa, you have the choral, uh, call and answer response where you need a whole choir. So you find that you have to work with people. But in terms of art and making art, maybe with a painting on canvas, it's easier. But if you're trying to be inspired by sigiri, for instance, you need to engage the people who make sigiri, and those naturally might become your assistants, because you can't make 50 sigiris alone. Otherwise, it will take multiple years. But also, I feel art is not really just the skill. I think it's also conceptual. I don't think it's about skill that I have as an artist, but I think the ideas that I have to transmit. So you find that eventually people who make sigili, what we call juakali, it's what I call now the juakali systems that I try to employ. That becomes a community. The people you work with become a community. Then the people that share the same language with you, you know, they are a community. The people that see your art is what eventually transmits or appreciates, but also pushes forward your art, your creation. There are few spaces, especially in East Africa, that offer a space like this, big enough to, especially also with the big works. So I think for me, that's the first value that the space affords. And putting in mind that there are few spaces and few support systems. So a space like this that can support your work in that way to present it, I think that's the first value. But obviously, the other value is really for people to come in and see what emotions maybe the work instills, or it invokes, the emotions that is invoked by this exhibition with the people coming in. But also, I've shown a lot in Uganda, so for me to be in Nairobi, in Kenya, is another value which I don't really take for granted, because art has to be seen. And with East Africa and the East African community, I think whenever you get a chance to show your work, even outside of your community, I think that also helps to push your emotions to somewhere else. In terms of value, I think value really is over time. To give value to this exhibition, maybe after 20, 30 years, I can look back. The true value, I think, manifests in the impact that the work creates over time.